Thank you, Carol and Maddie, is that your name?
Yep.
For giving us a wealth of knowledge about voting rights, and thanks to all participants for joining us today. You'll be asked to complete a brief survey after exiting this webinar. Please assist us in better serving you in the future by completing those few questions. Look for details of any upcoming webinars and trainings on our website at fmptic.org or contact our office for any individual assistance you might need related to your child's educational issues. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Okay, so everyone can see the slides, correct?
Correct, I can see them all.
Okay, great. What I do want help with before we start, since this is a newer platform for both Maddie and I, please let us know if for some reason the slides don't advance or you can't hear us or we're going too fast for everyone, because we want everyone to be able to have the information that they are here for. So thank you for having us here today. I'm Carol Rosen, and I'm an advocacy program specialist at the ARC of Illinois. I'm also here with Maddie Scholes. He's my co-presenter today, and Maddie is in his second year of the transition program at New Trier High School. Today, we're going to be talking to you about the Rev Up campaign, and Rev Up stands for Register, Educate, Vote, and Use Your Power. We also want to acknowledge AAPD, which is the American Association of People with Disabilities. The ARC of Illinois is a recipient of a Rev Up grant through AAPD, and that's how we're able to offer this presentation to you today. And we're here to help as many people get information on voting and registering to vote. Registering to vote is a right and a responsibility. There are over 38 million people with disabilities who are eligible to vote, but access barriers keep many disabled voters from accessing their right to vote. In 2016, the American Association of People with Disabilities took the initiative to launch the Rev Up voting campaign and Disability Voting Rights Week to address a 6% voting turnout disparity between people with and without disabilities. When the disability community engages in voting, it helps the outcomes that shape the future of accessibility to community integration, healthcare, employment, transportation, privacy, and other important aspects of people's lives. Voting is a way for your voice to be heard so that your needs are considered by those in a position to create change. Rev Up is about protecting the rights of people with disabilities to participate fully in our democracy. Register, educate, vote, and use your power. So everybody's ready, right? Because here we're gonna go. I also want to add that we got a really wonderful piece of news last week, which is that Governor Pritzker actually has signed a proclamation declaring this week Disability Voters' Rights Week in Illinois.
Yay, that gives me goosebumps.
It's really, really neat. And I'm trying to advance my slide. Okay, so we're gonna go over the 5 W's of voter registration today and voting. And we're throwing in an H for fun. So, and that's for how. So let's begin. All right, Maddie.
Am I unmuted? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. You ready to go?
What is voting? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the definition of voting is a usually formal expression of opinion or will in response to a proposed decision, especially one given as an indication of approval or disapproval of a proposal, motion, or candidate for office. Voting is the act of choosing someone or something in an election. An example of voting for a person could be voting for the next mayor of your city. Also, you could vote for something you would like in your county or against something you would not like in your county. Voting is our power and our right and our hope. Justin Whitlock Dart Jr. was an American activist and advocate for people with disabilities. He helped pass the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 and co-founded the Americans Associations with People with Disabilities. He said, "Vote as if your life depends on it, because it does." Voting is your right and your power. Your vote matters and can make a difference. Your vote can have a big impact on policies affecting people with disabilities and who is elected. Voting is a part of being a responsible citizen and participating in democracy. Voting helps in having your voice heard. Voting is a right and a privilege you have as a United States citizen. Voting allows you to give your opinion and vote for leaders to represent you. It demonstrates your beliefs at the level of city, county, state, and country. Voting is so important because it allows you to participate in our democratic process.
So you're probably asking yourself, who can register to vote? This is answered by, you must be a United States citizen. You must be 17 years old on or before the date of the primary election and turn 18 on or before the date of the general or consolidated election. So in other words, you can register to vote when you're 17, but you must be 18 when you go to vote in a general election. You also must live in your election precinct at least 30 days prior to election day. So if you've moved and you're not living at your current address for more than 30 days, you may not be able to vote until the next election. You must not be serving a sentence of confinement. So that means you are not able to vote if you are in prison. And you may not claim the right to vote anywhere else. So again, if you've moved, you can't vote in more than one place. You're only allowed to vote in one place. Another question that comes up often is a lot of times people will say, oh, I have guardianship. Someone is my guardian. I'm not allowed to vote. But the truth is, voting is such an important right in the United States that even if you have a guardianship, you still have the right to vote. The only time that you wouldn't have the right to vote is if someone put in your guardianship papers that you do not have the right to vote. And when I've talked to people who specialize in voting, they say they've never ever seen that a guardian has taken away the person's right to vote. So you have the right to vote even if you have a guardian. When should you register to vote? You should register to vote if you've never registered before, or if you've moved, like we mentioned on the last slide, or if you've changed your name. Otherwise, you're already registered and do not need to do anything before you vote. I'm going to add on here that a lot of times people are getting their state ID now, and there's a really wonderful thing that's happened, which is when you register for your state ID, you can tick a box that will automatically register you to vote. So that's a nice option for people as well. What do you need to register to vote? I'm not going to go through all of these because it's a long list, but you will need certain forms of identification to register to vote, which changes a little bit depending on how you want to register. So you would need 2 forms of ID. Some of those pieces of ID could include a social security card, your state ID, if you have a driver's license, which I'm not sure who's in this crowd, a birth certificate, even employee or student ID. Sometimes you can use things such as a US passport, a Link or Snap card, a credit card, or a lease or rental contract with your name on it. You can register with just your social security number, and we'll talk a little bit about that. That would be online or in person, but you'd have to mail it in to the election authority.
Carol, we do have a question in the questions box.
Great.
Do you want me to save it or ask them as they come in?
We have time, so let's handle it.
Okay. What if a person is unable to read or write, like my daughter?
Okay, so cognitively speaking, we are going to get there. That should not be an obstacle to them wanting to vote. It's just how we use accessibility. So we are going to get there. And if you feel like I haven't answered that question, by the end of the presentation, just let me know and then we will go back to it. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll definitely answer that. And that's one of the really important things that we want to address in this presentation, because voting and accessibility to voting looks different for different people. Okay, Maddie, this is your slide.
How do I register to vote? In Illinois, you can choose from 3 ways to vote. Register to vote. Going to a government office or a polling place in person, sending your registration form by mail, or filling out your registration form online. It doesn't take long to register to vote, but depending on when you vote, it is a little different depending on the method you choose.
Thank you, Maddie. This is you too.
We've included the two ways for you to register online. You can choose whichever way is easiest for you. On the left, you can click the link to get the site to register, or you can use the camera on your phone and aim it at the QR code on the left. That will bring up a link for you to click on, which also takes you to the site where you can register. You can register online to vote in upcoming elections by state ID or driver's license. You can even register to vote online with just your Social Security number. You would need to fill out the form online and then mail it. You can register in person for elections at many government offices or at early voting polling places during elections. Only on election day you can register and vote on the same day.
Thank you, Maddie, for going really slow so people can hear you really well.
There are 3 ways to cast the ballot to vote. Eligible voters can participate in early voting at specific locations, vote by mail, or vote on election day at their assigned polling place.
Voting by mail is a 2-step process. First, you need to be registered, and then you can request your vote by mail ballot. When you vote by mail, you'll be receiving your ballot in the mail. You can fill it out whenever it is convenient, then return it either by mailing it or by hand delivering it to a secured designated drop box or elections office. Voting by mail is an option for voters to cast their ballot prior to election day. Voters can request a vote by mail ballot through the mail or in person. Now in Illinois, you have an option to vote by mail for one election, or you can fill out a form and have all your future ballots sent to you so you can vote by mail permanently. And we'll have links to all that as well. So when you do vote by mail, your ballot has to be postmarked by election day to be counted in the general election. On the left on this slide is a link to click on, or on the right is another QR code to scan with your camera on your phone. And both of those will take you to the same website. It shows you a couple of pictures of what that should look like below. And then you can just follow the prompts and you'll see what is needed by your county to vote by mail. So each county can be a little bit different. So be sure to fill in the correct county when it does ask you for your jurisdiction. There are 102 counties in the state of Illinois, so ask for help if you need it. And that's an important point too, is we often need support with things. So please don't be, don't worry when you need support. That's the most important thing, is to get done what you would like to get done with voting registration. Thank you, Maddie. Here's you go.
If I prefer to vote in person, where do I go to vote? Where you go to vote is called a polling place. There will be places nearby in your community, such as a library, school, house of worship, police department, town hall, or other municipality buildings. How do you find your polling place? Often you will receive a card in the mail telling you where to go. If you do need to look up your polling place, you can go on the link on the slide, or you can use your camera on your phone to pull up the link. It will ask for your zip code. Put your zip code into the box and hit submit. Then it might ask you for additional information and will give you your polling place. Some polling places are open for early voting before November elections. Early voting polling places also offer you the opportunity to register on site and vote on the same day. Voting early helps you beat the long lines on voting day. There are 2 ways to vote in person. One is by paper ballot, the other is by electronic voting machine. Polling places should be accessible. This means there should be accessible parking and entryways to the polling place. Polling places should also be able to provide the options for people who may need large print materials, a magnifying glass, touchscreen voting machine, and assistance if necessary to access a paper ballot or voting machine. Someone can help you vote if needed. They can't tell you who to vote for. That's completely up to you.
If you voted in Illinois before, you don't need to provide ID to vote. If you're a first-time voter who registered by mail and didn't provide your driver's license number, a state ID number, or the last 4 digits of your social security number or other ID, you may want to bring these or a couple of forms of ID with you so you don't lose the opportunity. You would then be required to provide one of the above sources of ID. So you can vote without an ID. And if you are unable to provide that ID at the time you do go to your polling place, you will be able to vote with what is called a provisional ballot. But after you vote provisionally, you will need to submit additional proof of registration to the election authority. So that information has to be received by the election authority no later than the close of business day on the Tuesday following the election. So just to be on the safe side, I always think it's just more efficient, because how much time do we have, right? So just bring your ID just in case until you vote in a few elections and you know that they're not going to need that. So how do you learn about the candidates? Knowledge is power. You want to be learning about what's going to be on your ballot and the issues you're voting on, because they're an important part of becoming a well-informed voter. And here are some ways we learn about important issues coming up in the elections. We try to find out what's on the ballot, and it's also really important to research key issues in your community and learn where candidates stand on disability issues. And here are several resources for you that would take you again to platforms that use information in a very straightforward way, where you can learn about the candidates and the issues. To address one of the questions that came up earlier, one of these that I have shown you here is called Ballot Ready, and you can read through it and sort of fill out a mock ballot, which you can take to the polling place with you. So if you have a voting buddy, it still helps you keep your vote your own. And we can still talk more about that. I think that was a great question. So when you get a copy of this presentation, you will be getting this in there, and those are the QR codes, and I believe there are links to each of those, but if they're not links on these, there are links in the slides previously. So those will take you to where you can find out where to register to vote. You can find your polling place. If you think you've already registered, you can use the voter registration lookup. You can also register to vote by mail for one election or all the elections. The nice thing about voting, registering to vote by mail for all elections is if you decide that you would prefer to go to a polling place instead of submitting your ballot by mail, you still have that opportunity. You don't have to feel like you can't use a polling place, but you don't miss out because you do have the paper ballot that you are able to send in also. The other resources that we've given you today are links to a paper Illinois voter registration application in English and in Spanish. And I'm going to just talk to Maddie a little bit right now, and you're going to hear how he registered to vote and some of the ways he likes to research candidates and the issues. So, Maddie, what year or when did you register to vote?
I don't remember the exact year, but the first year I voted was 2022, the first midterm after Trump lost re-election.
Okay, and then you told me that someone helped support you to register to vote. Who was that
My
person?
grandfather.
And how did they support you? I just like the story.
Because I always get, my grandfather at the time wanted me to have a state ID. So at the same time, they said, oh, do you want to vote, be registered to vote? And I said, yes.
Good, I love that. And when you research candidates, what platforms are you using to do your research for candidates and voting issues?
If it's like a Senate race, like I basically do my own research. Like I look up the candidates often. Like I'll literally look up candidates on a daily basis and what they stand for on disability rights.
And do you look on their websites or listen to the news? Or you told me, I want you to tell everyone that what you have that's unique to Maddie Schulz.
I use the Almanacs of American Politics. Both of these weigh 15 pounds, and I cannot. They are very helpful, but they're expensive.
And Maddie and I met because I did a voter registration presentation at my daughter's transition program, and Maddie was just a standout in how interested he was in the electoral process. So it's been really fun. Maddie and I then did a video on him registering, what his experience was registering to vote, and now he is helping me with these presentations, and we're working on having him volunteer for a re-election campaign for his local representative. So
she even announces yet. She still has yet to decide if she's running again.
That may have something to do with it, but I'm happy to help people here. I want to put that out there. If you're going to register after this presentation and would like to work with me and do a registration like video and talk about your experience, and if it was accessible to you to register to vote, I'd love to hear from you. My information will be coming up. But Maddie, do you vote in most elections?
Yes.
And you told me you voted in like both the primary and the general election.
Yes.
Where do you go to do that?
Northfield Community Church, which is 5 seconds away from home.
And how did you go with someone? Do you need help, or are you okay going by yourself?
I am okay, minus the fact where my polling place is right off of Willow. If you know where Willow Road is, it's a death trap.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I don't think people
we need
will
accessible parking over there.
Okay. And then you said you walked over and you rode
my electric scooter when I had one.
Okay. And Maddie promises me he wore a helmet. So so you like to vote at your polling place and you prefer that? Would you ever vote by mail?
Unless I am sick or incapable of voting in person.
Okay. And so when you're going to the ballot, are you using anything like Ballot Ready to prepare something before you go to do that?
Okay. I know ahead of time because I voted for the same people in the primary.
Okay. And then how do you feel about being able to vote?
Happy.
Good. Do you want to say more about that, or you just want to leave it at that?
I am happy we have it at 18 and not how some candidates want it to be bumped up to 21.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the GOP primaries, they've hinted that they want to bump the voting age up to 21 and prevent my generation from voting.
Do you vote early, or do you vote
in day of election day? Okay. Sometimes I regret doing that, though. I kind of want us to early voting next year.
Okay.
But I haven't fully made my decision because I don't know where the early voting place is in Northfield.
Well, we can use that polling locator, I believe, and find out for you. And do you have any advice for people here about voting and registering to vote?
Do your research on the candidates. Be a certain candidates say they're for disability rights, and some do not. Like former
Very-
Republican nominee for Senate, Kathy Salvi. Her website, I used her website 2 times because I wanted to find her stance on Americans with disabilities was. I couldn't find anything on her stance on it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
we just want to reiterate that this is nonpartisan.
I identify as an
expressing
independent.
a point of view, but we're just here to share about voter registration and voting because it's that important. The other thing I want to share with you is that there's a link at the bottom of this slide, and that has the YouTube video of Maddie when we talked about his his experience voting and his registration. So that concludes our time with you. We're going to go into questions, and we appreciate you being here and sharing with us the importance of registering to vote, educating others, and using your power to vote. So we want you to remember to use your power and vote, and we're here to take questions now. So that was great. Thank you, everybody. And Maddie, thank you. I am hoping that I can click this. Oh, yes. Okay. And now you can see us, correct?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah, I wanted to follow up on Susan's question about
Please.
helping your student or your child, your adult dependent that has reading and writing difficulties. So my son also he's non-speaking and he has reading and writing difficulties. So we did register him to vote. And then the first ballot, we did a mail-in. The second time we were a little bit more prepared. We used some resources out there and we actually were able to put all of his voting questions in on his communication device. So when we got to the ballot to fill it out, he could pick out what he wanted to do and I could fill it out for him. We've also read it to him and he picked which answer that he wanted. So all of those things, you should be able to work with your electoral judges. If you have any questions, they can assign you a voting buddy. I know when I was electoral judge, we did things like we could go out to someone's car if they had trouble navigating our building. We were in an older building. So we could do that. Like 2 of us would go and take a ballot out to them. They were able to vote when we would turn that in. So there's lots and lots of options there. So please don't feel limited that, you're not able to vote because you need more accommodations.
And I would say that that is a great answer. So I think that, I have the same experience. My daughter is nonverbal. So we need to really communicate really well with her. She also has like emerging capabilities on her talker, but so it's an ongoing conversation. I also like the idea of the ballot ready and putting things on a talker. And I love that you gave that feedback, Abby, because it's right. We're here parent to parent and to share, what works. And there are definitely more ideas than that. My daughter uses hands, like, what's your choice? If we can talk through things and she picks it, then we, honor that choice because she's made that and communicated that to us. Have there been, does that answer that for them?
So everybody has the ability to unmute yourself and ask questions. I think it was Susan that asked that question. Susan, do you think that was helpful? Hold on, my questions box is so small.
Sorry, yeah, I just typed in there. I appreciate.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys answering that. And yes, actually voting was not something I ever thought about for her. She's just turning 17 in October. So I haven't really got to that point yet, but I'll be becoming guardian of her. But she can speak. She just has never been able to learn to read or write. So I was just, anyway, I'm thankful for those resources that you guys gave.
Yeah, and I have guardianship of my son too, and like Carol said, that's an option in guardianship is to remove that ability to vote. That was not something on our list. So we live in a very small precinct as far as voting goes. So I've always taken my kids with me to vote. So this was not an unfamiliar process for him, but no one ever questioned anything in any of the accommodations we were giving to him.
I feel that that's the way it'll be for me too, because it's a really small, and I actually know a couple of the judges are officials or whatever. So.
And the other thing is, I really appreciate the thought that when we're out at our polling places, it really brings up issues of accessibility and gets us out there to make it that, that's an issue that's important. But I also like the fact that, like, let's say someone needs a quieter environment. The vote by mail seems to work really well for my daughter at times. So that's a nice option too, because then you have some time to go through it, and you don't have to go through it all in one swoop. So you can go back to it too. So that's a nice option as well. Abby also touched on something that I wanted to touch on, that when I work with self-advocates through Going Home Coalition that I manage and through the Rev Up grant, I've had 3 self-advocates, and now Abby's the 4th person to say that they've been election judges. And this is a really amazing way that everybody can get involved and stay involved in the process on voting day. And the neat thing about being an election judge is you train for it, and then it's a paid position on election day. There's other volunteer positions, but it's just really, I didn't even realize that, like I have to say, when I started the Rev Up grant, that was something that people could do. So it's a really nice option for people to who are interested to be able to become an election judge for their local polling places. And then
Yeah, and it actually pays very well, just to let everybody know. You sat there for 14 hours. It's kind of grueling, but yes, it actually pays really well. It's like maybe 2 Saturdays of training. There's a small test involved, but I've actually sat in there and served as someone's like scribe and read the test out loud to them as they were going through it. So I know those accommodations can be done. I think it would be great for more of our youth to get involved in that process. And Carol and I actually did this presentation for a local high school class last week, and it was something we talked about afterwards. So I think it would be great for more people to get involved to be election judges.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And were there more questions, Abby?
Like I said, everybody has the ability to unmute, or there is the questions box. So I don't have any more in the questions box currently.
Okay, that's great. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Abby, or anything like that?
I just want to very much emphasize that to please take your survey. It should pop up as soon as you exit. This helps us to log our information, make sure it's useful. This will be archived and displayed on our website as well, but I enjoyed this just as much the second time as I did the first time. Maddie and Carol, I had a great time. I learned something new this time compared to last time, and I want to say after your presentation last week, I had 4 students in a class of 15 that said, can we go on our lunch break and register to vote? So we are doing great things. So
good. That's really meaningful. It's really wonderful also. And I've seen people just take out their phones and be able to register through their phones using the QR code. So thank you for sharing that, because that's important information for me to know too, that the impact is definitely there. So maybe, can you see everyone, Abby?
I don't know. So this is a bad thing about GoToWebinar. We don't have the ability to see everybody's camera. So it's not like that with Zoom. I can see everybody's name, and I can see that everybody's active, and if they raise their hand, ask a question, but.
Okay. Well, maybe people can just kind of shout it out or something that, do